An initial explosion occurred, a secondary explosion followed, and a series of fires erupted at the facility which blew contaminants into the air. As a result of the explosions, mandatory evacuations were ordered for residents within a 4-mile radius of the facility.
The last thing that we wanted to get to was Boss Watch, so we will go ahead and go through that relatively quickly, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here. So the first up was in Texas, where the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and the U.S. Department of Justice announced the filing of a felony criminal charge and a related civil complaint and consent decree against under the Clean Air Act against TPC Group, which is a Texas petrochemical company. So TPC Group entered a guilty plea to a 1-count information charging the company with a violation of the Clean Air Act before the U.S. Magistrate Judge Zach Hawthorne for the Eastern District of Texas. The filings address explosions that caused injuries, evacuations, and significant air pollution. The company has agreed to pay over $30 million in criminal fines and civil penalties and spend approximately $80 million to improve its risk management program and improve safety issues at TPC Group's Port Neches and Houston facilities. According to the information provided in court on November 27th, 2019, and this is, another example of just how sluggish the U.S. court system is and how absurd it is that bosses are able to get away with stuff like this for so long. According to information in 2019, 2 explosions at TPC Group's Port Neches facility prompted evacuations of thousands of residents from the city of Port Neches and surrounding areas, released more than 11 million pounds of extremely hazardous substances, and caused more than $130 million in off-site property damage and other impacts to human health and the environment. 4 employees and 1 contractor suffered injuries, including concussions, burns, perforated eardrums, tinnitus, and cracked teeth. TPC Group's facility produced the hazardous chemical butadiene, which is used in the production of tires, latexes, and plastics. Butadiene can form a popcorn polymer, which can grow at an accelerating rate and cause catastrophic events, including explosions and fires. The company was aware that this polymer was forming in some of its production lines and the risk it posed, but failed to take necessary measures to prevent the explosion. An initial explosion occurred at the facility's south unit, a secondary explosion followed, and a series of fires erupted at the facility which blew contaminants into the air. As a result of the explosions, mandatory evacuations were ordered for residents within a 4-mile radius of the facility. Voluntary orders to shelter in place were issued for residents in the surrounding area, and local schools were closed for multiple days to allow buildings to be cleaned, repaired, and inspected. The company has agreed to pay $18 million in criminal fines. The plea agreement also includes a 1-year term of probation and publishing a public apology. The $12.1 million in civil penalty payments will be made through bankruptcy proceedings. TPC Group will also spend approximately $80 million to improve its risk management program and improve safety issues at both facilities. TPC Group has been criminally charged and pleaded guilty to knowingly failing to implement its own written operating procedures, including monthly flushing of production lines that would have prevented the explosion. Clean Air Act regulations require planning to prevent accidental releases of hazardous chemicals and makes implementation of those plans mandatory. Under the proposed civil consent decree, TPC Group is required to update safety information for equipment at its Port Neches and Houston facilities to ensure that they are designed, maintained, inspected, and operated in a safe manner. TPC Group must overhaul its process hazard analysis program to ensure prompt completion of all corrective actions and remedial measures to mitigate hazards at the facilities. And so they're going to be taking some, presumably, hopefully taking more precautions in the future. But yeah, absolutely wild stuff that bosses can get away with for so long. Over in Mississippi, the Department of Labor has obtained a federal consent judgment that requires a Greenville cleaning and janitorial service and its owner to pay more than $127,000 in back wages, liquidated damages, and compensatory damages following a court's finding that the two illegally terminated workers for asserting their rights to federally mandated sick leave. Before entering a consent judgment on March 4th, 2024, Jesse's Cleaning Service, LLC, the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Mississippi issued an order finding that Jesse's Cleaning Service illegally terminated the workers after they asserted their right to be paid under the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, provisions of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act and the Fair Labor Standards Act. As part of this finding, the court found that Jesse's Cleaning Service and Jesse Talaferro owed $110,000 in back wages and liquidated damages and about $17,000 in compensatory damages. In addition to ordering the payment of the monetary damages, the consent judgment prohibits the defendants from further violating the FLSA. I love how that's always part of these.
Don't do it again.
Like, don't violate the law again. As if, you know, you do have to reiterate that to people, because they feel entitled to violating the law.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
In Alabama, TCI of Alabama, which is a recycling, removal, and disposal and repair company, will pay $90,000 and provide other relief to settle an EEOC retaliation lawsuit. The EEOC charged that TCI violated federal law by terminating an employee for participating in an internal investigation about a charge filed with the EEOC, alleging that TCI's hiring practices discriminated against females. The employee who was retaliated against had been with TCI for 28 years. Such alleged conduct violates the anti-retaliation provision of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And according to the EEOC's complaint, after a female job applicant filed a charge of discrimination with the EEOC, TCI interviewed a longtime management employee about its hiring practices. The manager told the company's investigator that TCI had a practice of not hiring female laborers, which dated back to when the company first opened in 2007. The EEOC alleges that after the manager told the truth about TCI's discriminatory policy, TCI's president repeatedly pressured him to change his story. Quote, to change his story. When the manager refused to recant, TCI terminated him. Under the 3-year consent decree resolving the lawsuit, TCI will pay $90,000 in monetary damages to the employee it terminated, adopt and distribute an anti-retaliation policy to its employees and all staffing agencies it utilizes, post a notice to employees about the settlement, and provide annual mandatory training to owners, managers, and employees on the protections of Title VII for employees and applicants. A few dishonorable mentions this week. The U.S. DOL found Takira Tepeke number 1 and number 2 in Farr and McAllen, Texas, respectively, paid cooks, servers, and non-exempt managers hourly wages for all hours worked and failed to pay the required time and 1/2 rate for hours over 40 in a work week. Additionally, the employers failed to keep federally required records. The department recovered about $37,000 in back wages and liquidated damages for 19 employees. In 2023, the division found more than $29 million owed for nearly 26,000 food service industry workers. Just food service industry workers. Right. And that's just the ones that they caught.
Right.
Dragon Rig Sales and Service LLC, which is a manufacturing and service company which builds oil field service equipment for energy and industrial companies in Beaumont, Texas, will pay $35,000 and furnish other relief to settle an EEOC disability discrimination lawsuit which alleged the company discriminated against an applicant with anxiety and opioid use disorder because of their medication, not because they had any evidence that the prospective employee could not perform their job duties. Smithfield Foods in Atlanta, Georgia, violated federal law when they fired a senior sales employee because of her age, the EEOC charged in a lawsuit. The employee, who had been working for Smithfield for 10 years, was fired in a supposed reduction in force, where almost all the workers happened to be over 55. And finally, Tractor Supply Company agreed to pay $75,000 and provide other relief to settle a disability discrimination and retaliation lawsuit filed by the EEOC, alleging that in Mississippi, the company disclosed, subjected to hostility, and ultimately terminated an employee born with HIV. I think, Adam, we talked about this like a year ago, didn't we?
Yeah,
I think we
it
did.
felt really familiar.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think this is that same case, and they settled it finally.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that when it came out because that was so effing wild.
It was very gross, the behavior of the company. Yeah.
Yeah, folks should go back and like search up Tractor Supply Company, Mississippi, HIV, and you will see some crazy news stories and press releases from the EEOC with the alleged activity from Tractor Supply Company and the managers. I mean, absolutely. It was super wild. I don't remember all of it off. I just remember the feeling of being like, wow, that's happening
Right.
today, the year of our Lord 2023.
Right.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.